Hi, welcome to Take 5, where we daily consider devotional thoughts from Oswald Chambers' book, By Utmost for Its Highest. Today is October 13th, and the title of today's devotional is Individual Discouragement and Personal Growth. Moses looked at their burdens, Exodus 2 and verse 11. Moses was aware of his Hebrew lineage, even though he grew up in the palace of the leader of Egypt. It was in this setting that Moses developed a sense that he was to be instrumental in freeing his people from Egyptian slavery. Dr. Chambers begins, Moses saw the oppression of his people and felt certain that he was the one to deliver them, and in the righteous indignation of his own spirit, he started to right their wrongs. After he launched his first strike for God and for what was right, God allowed Moses to be driven into empty discouragement, sending him into the desert to feed sheep for 40 years. Moses was 40 when he launched out in what seemed to be a plan to encourage rebellion, but the plan failed, which sent the Hebrew fleeing for his life. It was 40 years following this that God appeared to Moses in the burning bush, calling the Israelite to service. Chambers says, at the end of that time, God appeared to Moses and said to him, "Bring my people out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go?" In the beginning, Moses had realized that he was the one to deliver the people, but he had to be trained and disciplined by God first. He was right in his individual perspective, but he was not the person for the work until he had learned true fellowship and oneness with God. This is the lesson Dr. C is advancing. You will never please God. Not you, not of your own accord. God wants you to be his tool with whom he works. God told Isaiah, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways my ways, declares the Lord." Chambers continues, we may have the vision of God and a very clear understanding of what God wants, but yet when we start to do it, there comes to us something equivalent to Moses' 40 years in the wilderness. It's as if God had ignored the entire thing. Moses was discouraged by what he considered his failings so miserably. Think about it in this manner. If we do things according to our ways, then we can get the credit. We can pat ourselves on the back for the splendid ways that we have done a work for God. Moses thought that he had a great idea in killing the Egyptian, but that was not of God. In the rules later given to Moses, those which we call the 10 Commandments, one of them was to not murder. Moses committed a sin in order to accomplish what he thought was from God, yet God's plans will not be carried out or succeed by works of sin. For 40 years, Moses went about life. He got married, had children, had a regular job with absolutely no significance to it, and likely always carrying a sense of discouragement as to his failing God, but not really knowing why. Why didn't his plan work? Then the day occurred that God spoke to him, and this time Moses was at a loss in another way. O.C. continues, when we are thoroughly discouraged, God comes back and revives his call to us. And then we begin to tremble and say, "Who am I that I should go?" We must learn that God's great stride is summed up in these words, "I am who I am has sent me to you." No longer is it we who are leading the way, but God. O.C. continues, we must also learn that our individual effort for God shows nothing but disrespect for him. Our individuality is to be rendered radiant through a personal relationship with God so that he may be well pleased. Our lives are to be found by we in him and not merely he in us. Moses wanted to carry out a plan for God, yet God had a plan he would carry out through Moses. Chambers instructs we are focused on the right individual perspective of things. We have the vision and can say, "I know this is what God wants me to do," but we have not yet learned to get into God's stride. You may know what God wants accomplished, but it must be he who is calling the shots. O.C. finishes with this note of encouragement. If you are going through a time of discouragement, there is a time of great personal growth ahead. God lifts up those whom he has to bring down so to get their attention. Thanks for being here today. Now may God's grace and peace be ours as we seek to live our utmost for His highest. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.